Everybody, this is Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse, and we're going to do another character build. Here we go. So there is a power that I missed. Going through the core rulebook, looking at power sets, building characters for a while, there is a whole power I just never noticed, and that's because it's not in a power set. Not even in the basic power set, but it is listed as a power in the core rulebook, and it is on a hero's stat block that you are able to pick up and play, namely that of the Hulk. So it is a valid choice, and we're talking about the anger power. So the anger power is one that, like me, you might have missed. So let me give you the basics of it. You have no power set that it's a part of, not even basic. The prerequisites are, and this is going to matter, Mighty 3, and a rank of 4. It is an action or reaction to trigger and is concentration. If it's a reaction, it is triggered when you are harmed by an attack. And then it is concentration that costs 10 points of focus or potentially more. For every 10 points of focus that you spend, you add 15 points of damage to any melee attack. And please note that this focus is spent when you actually cast the power, not for each attack, and so it's not that expensive. So you add 15 points of damage to melee-based attacks, but you lose 2 points from your logic score, and therefore from your logic defense. And you cannot concentrate on any other abilities while you use the anger power. I'm always looking for ways that I can add damage to a character because it's a fun way to build. And so we're going to utilize anger today and really see what we can do with it. In addition, I want to show you how you can ramp damage on characters if you really want to invest in it at early levels of the game. And so we're going to get into that. I don't think that I have a lot more to say in a preamble. Let's just jump right in. I'm not that great at naming my characters, so if you have a name for this character, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I'll be calling today's character Rage. I would love to start this character off big. I think it would be fun and flavorful and would make a lot of sense. And you've seen me use size in this game actually quite a bit, but I just don't think I can get away with it because we're going to need our trait for something else. So we're going to be average size, and we're going to start off with our occupation as military. I typically don't take an occupation for technical or mechanical reasons. I tend to do it for flavor, but here I had to do it for mechanical reasons. There is a trait we absolutely need on this character, and we really don't have a way to get it until very late game unless we pick it up right here at the beginning with our occupation. So military, of course, means that we are part of military service in some way, either now or in our past, and we get 3 traits. We really want battle ready for this. This character is pretty focus hungry using the anger power, so I need to have the focus to do it. So we're going to pick up battle ready with military. We also get connections for the military and situational awareness. Battle Ready just gives you 30 additional points of focus, and it is useful on every character, and this is really why I believe that the military occupation is mechanically the most powerful in the game, because all 3 of these traits are great. More focus is always more better. Connections, as you know, is just about my favorite trait in the game because it gives you a way of interacting with the story and driving the plot forward, and connections with the military is just always useful. I have a player in my game right now who has this, and he uses it all the time to great effect. Lastly, situational awareness just gives you an edge on initiative checks, which is actually not that critical in this particular character. Weirdly enough, we don't necessarily want to go early in combat, but there are many times when you want that no matter what. I am going to take something out of normal context for our origin. I just feel with this character, taking the Spirit of Vengeance origin is just too good to pass up, even though we technically shouldn't qualify for it. So talk to your narrator about this. But we, as a Spirit of Vengeance, become possessed by a spirit of vengeance. And maybe this is when your anger power kicks in. Maybe this interacts only with that particular power, but this is a Ghost Rider type of feel. There are certain powers that are recommended. We're taking just about none of them. And the limitation is that Spirit of Vengeance should be for rank 4, but we're going to be picking up the core of this character build much earlier. So I think this is a nice flavorful fit, but if it doesn't work at your table, or if you just have another origin that you think is fun, then just run with that. This one is not mechanical, it's just for flavor purposes. Let's do point buy for rank 1, and we are going to take a negative value in our logic score. Our logic defense is going to be garbage anyway, so we might as well trade that in for a little bit better mechanical boost. So I'm going to take -2 in logic. If I go farther than that, I risk at very high rank possibly hitting a 0 logic score, and I don't know what that would do with my character. Anyway, we're going to get 4 points in melee, 2 points in resilience, and 1 point in vigilance. Now, if you don't want to do negative point buy, I would take only 3 points in melee and cap it later, and take no points in vigilance. And taking no points in vigilance is okay, because first of all, we're not going to have any powers that use focus. And the second reason is we have Battle Ready. Battle Ready gives us an additional 30 points of focus, which means we'll have 40 to start with. Remember, even if you have 0 points in vigilance, your minimum focus as any character, including NPCs, is a 10. And so we'll have defenses of 14 for melee, 10 for agility, 12 for resilience, 11 for vigilance, 10 for ego, and an 8 for logic. All right, kicking things off, we are going to take Mighty 1. This is a melee-based character. We absolutely need the Mighty power, so we're going to pick that up right now. And this, of course, is going to add 1 to our damage multiplier for melee-based attack, and it's going to add to our non-attack rolls using melee. But next, we're going to get into Mighty 2. And of course, Mighty 2 is something we normally could not take. So let's talk about how we're going to do it. Mighty 2 has 2 prerequisites. The first one being Mighty 1, which we have. The second one is being a rank of 2. So we're going to take as our trait Surprising Power, which allows us to bypass the rank, but not other prerequisites, of a power that we are taking, right? So if we take the trait Surprising Power and apply it to Mighty 2, then we can take Mighty 2 as our next power. And this is a way that you can ramp damage earlier in the game. It costs you your traits to do it, so it's pretty expensive. But if all that you really want is to crank up your damage very early on, you can do it, and it would work perfectly fine. So anyway, that is what we are going to do. If you decide you don't want to dump a bunch of traits into taking damage powers early, that would actually save you to take other interesting traits, which does make sense as well. The next power that we're going to take, it could be Sturdy 1 if you really wanted it. I don't find that characters need a lot of sturdy powers in early game. They need them in later game. And so we're going to delay Sturdy 1 till next level. And if you wanted to move it up, you certainly could, and it would be completely viable. And I also considered taking Brawling, but there's actually a reason why we do not want Brawling on this character. The anger power can be triggered as a reaction only when we take damage from an attack. So someone has to hit us. At early game, they're going to be hitting us with melee or agility attacks. If my defense score gets too high on agility, people are going to miss me too often, and I would rather use my reaction to trigger anger rather than my action. And as a result, I don't want significant defenses in some areas of the game. So I'm not taking Brawling on this character. Initially I did, but I actually would rather get hit. So we're going to not take Brawling. We could take something like Wisdom to try to shore up our logic defense, but our ego defense is never going to be that great either. And so I feel like that would be kind of a wasted power. So instead, we're just going to have poor defenses on this character and hopefully bump our resilience. Instead, you know what? Let's have some fun. We're going to take additional Limb. Additional limb is one of those things that I absolutely adore on a character. I think it's fun, and I don't take it as often as I would like to. Specifically, we can have additional arms or a tail, or really anything else we can think of. We are going to be basically Goro and have 4 arms. And this is going to give us the ability to grapple multiple targets if we really want to. And that's going to prove useful for this particular character. So imagine being able to grapple multiple characters and still be able to punch them. It frees up a lot of kind of clunky action economy. Additionally, it grants us an edge in melee and agility checks. So any one of the powers that we take that talks about melee checks is now automatically done with an edge. And who doesn't want that? We haven't actually gone into a power set yet, but we're going to spend most of our time in the martial arts power set, and so we're going to take Banging Heads. I love this power because it allows you to attack 2 different enemies and do full damage to both. It's one of the few powers in the game that lets you do that. We do a melee check against the melee defense of 2 enemies. Notice it does not say melee attack, meaning we get an edge on the roll, all right? If we fail against one of the defense scores, we fail on the action entirely. But if we succeed, we now do full damage to both enemies. On a fantastic success, they don't take double damage, they're just knocked prone. Well, this is pretty great. We have 4 arms, so you could finagle it with your narrator to perhaps be able to grab 2 or 3 or up to 4 enemies, but that is not rules as written. That's something you'll have to check with your narrator. At minimum, we can grab 2 enemies and smack them together for full damage, and that is a melee check, which we have an edge on. So combat's really simple for us right now. Find 2 enemies, grab them, smack them together. And if you do that, you're going to do about 32 points of damage on the board, which is pretty great right away at rank 1. Let's go ahead and look at rank 2. We're going to add a point into melee, bringing it to a 5, and we're going to really push our resilience, and we're going to bring it to a 4. We're going to bring vigilance to a 3, and this is going to give us defenses of a 15 for melee, a 10 for agility, 14 for resilience, 13 for vigilance, 10 for ego, and an 8 for logic. Okay, so the way that we build rank 2 is going to be a little bit complicated. And if you're doing the Tony's Workshop rules, you're going to have to order these in a very specific way, just so that you know. But here is the idea of what we're going to do. You can always use a trait to take surprising power. Surprising power allows you to bypass the rank requirements of one power that you take, all right? If you give up a power at a rank, you can take an additional trait. So here's what we're going to do. Our first trait is going to be surprising power to be able to take Mighty 3. Mighty 3 only has 2 prerequisites, Mighty 2, which we have, and a rank of 3. We're going to bypass the rank requirement with our trait. We're now going to give up another power to take a trait. That trait is going to be surprising power so that we can take Mighty 4. Now we take Mighty 4 as a power, and now we have a 4 damage multiplier for all of our melee-based attacks. And that's wonderful, and we've been able to bypass that rank requirement. Please note we had to give up one of our powers to do so. Next, we're going to give up another power to take another trait. That trait is going to be surprising power so that we can take anger. So the next power we're going to take is anger. Anger only requires a rank of 4, which we are bypassing, and the Mighty 3 power. We could have taken this a second ago before Mighty 4, so I'm assuming that we're not doing the Tony's Workshop rules, but if you were doing Tony's Workshop, then you'd want to do Mighty 3, and then the 2 things, the trait and the power, to take anger, and then Mighty 4. That would be the best order of operations. And now we have anger. Just to recap what we said before, anger has no power set. It requires rank 3, which we took, and a rank of 4, which we have bypassed by getting a trait for surprising power, okay? It can be triggered as an action or a reaction. We want it triggered as a reaction, and the trigger is when we are harmed by an attack. So we have to get hit, which is why I don't want great defenses on everything. It is concentration, and it costs 10 points of focus or more. For every 10 points of focus that we spend when we initiate it, we add 15 points of damage to every melee attack, but we lose 2 points from our logic score and thus our logic defense. We cannot concentrate on any other power while we use anger. All right, so building rank 2 is a little bit complex and it uses a lot of surprising powers to pick things up early, and we don't get any special abilities at all. So you might say, I don't like this. I want to just delay my mighty powers, and that's going to let me pick up more interesting stuff earlier, and that is completely viable. I'm just building this character to explore the anger power and how much damage we can do with it. So for me and this concept, I wanted to take that earlier. But if somebody said, that's way too many surprising powers and I don't feel like my character is more interesting at rank 2, I don't disagree with you at all. One thing that's important to note, you don't want the anger power until minimum rank 2, and the reason is, rules as written, you cannot spend more than 5 points of focus per rank obtained on a power. Well, anger requires 10 points of focus minimum, and that means I really can't even use it at rank 1 no matter what. So rank 2 is the earliest we're going to get it, and we're only going to bump up the amount of damage per attack it does at even numbered ranks, 2, 4, and 6. All that said, when we get into combat, we grab 2 people, we smack them together, and grand total, we're going to do 88 points of damage on the board. So that's split between 2 enemies, which is pretty fantastic. Let's go ahead and build for rank 3. We're going to bring melee to a 6, resilience to a 5, and vigilance to a 6. I'm bringing vigilance to a 6 just in case we have multiple combats in a day so that I would have the focus to spend. If, on the other hand, you said, I'm going to delay the focus and put those points into resilience because we still don't have damage reduction, I don't blame you. That will bring our defenses to a 16 for melee, a 10 for agility, 15 for resilience, 16 for vigilance, 10 for ego, and an 8 for logic. But that 8 for logic is probably down to a 6 when combat actually starts. Now the character is going to really come together. We're first going to pick up Sturdy 1. Sturdy 1 gives us 1 damage reduction. Boy, oh boy, have we been needing this. Next, we're going to take Grappling Technique. For a melee-based character, this is one of the best things that you can pick up. When we do a grapple check now, we are able to do our melee damage when we do it. So we can both grab somebody and deal damage simultaneously. And we're going to be using grabbed enemies as part of our action economy from this point going forward, so you really need Grappling Technique. Next, we're going to pick up Crushing Grip, another particular favorite of mine. Crushing Grip is a reaction power that is triggered when we have an enemy grabbed. Please note, as I've pointed out before, the present tense framing of this. If an enemy is currently grabbed, you may use your reaction to simply do another attack. Please note this is a melee attack, so we don't get an automatic edge on it, and it is against the target's resilience defense, not their melee defense. That might change things. Anyway, on a success, they take regular damage. On a fantastic success, they take double damage and are pinned. But one other thing I've noted before about this is that the condition doesn't end. This is a critical thing. When you use Crushing Grip, even if it's a regular success, not a fantastic success, at the end of the attack, the enemy is still grabbed. Meaning, if you had, I don't know, 2 reactions, you would be able to do 2 Crushing Grips in a row because the condition persists through them, and the reaction is triggered on the present tense, the enemy is grabbed. But we are going into a new power set, and we're going to go into Plasticity, and we're going to pick up Extended Reach 1. This is one of the core combos that I've talked about many times on this channel before, but it's a combo of being able to grab an enemy in melee, which is based on your reach, and then extending your reach. So Extended Reach 1 just quadruples our reach. This is why I really wanted to be a big character, because our reach would have been 10 feet, rather than 5, but as it is, we now have a reach of 20 feet. So that's 20 feet in any direction. If you want to bang heads, which is our primary attack, those enemies can be potentially 40 feet apart, and you can still grab them and smack them together, because banging heads says that we are going to be able to do this to anybody within our reach. Of course, the trait we have to take here is Combat Reflexes, which gives us an extra reaction. Are we going to use this for another Crushing Grip attack? Of course we are. So we really have a choice at this point. If I want to attack multiple targets, well, what I would be able to do is simply do a banging heads attack. This will grab two enemies, smack them together, and if I pull that off, I will do 98 points of damage on the board, which is great, but they're not grabbed, so I don't get to utilize my reactions. If I want to attack a single target, well, at that point, I can grab one target with a grappling technique and do two crushing grip attacks. If I pull that off, on average, I'm going to do 147 points of damage. Meaning this character is now going to be able to be an effective multi-target combatant or single-target combatant, and we're going to rank them for both. Let's go ahead and let's start building rank 4. We're going to bring melee, resilience, and vigilance to 7, and we're going to finally put a point into ego, bringing it to a 1. Why not? This will give us defenses of 17 for melee, resilience, and vigilance, 10 for agility, 11 for ego, and an 8 for logic, but as soon as I use anger, that's going to come down to a 4. The first power we're going to take is Sturdy 2 for 2 damage reduction. This character gets hit a lot, so we might as well reduce that damage. Next, we're going to take Do This All Day, which allows you to use your action to expend focus so that you can heal health at a 2-for-1 discount. And that's wonderful. We can just keep fighting and dealing out massive damage quite literally all day. We're also going to take Sturdy 3, so now we have a 3 damage reduction, and that's even more better than Sturdy 2. Next, we're going to take Always Ready. Always Ready gives you an extra reaction, but only for a power that is in the martial arts power set. Fortunately for us, Crushing Grip is in the martial arts power set. So now we have 3 reactions. Next, we're going to take Attack Stance. Now, Attack Stance gives you the ability to double your melee ability bonus to damage. And am I going to assume that we use this? No, I am not going to assume we use Attack Stance. We would have to use a full power to get into it, and that's a full round of attacks. And I just don't think that with the damage we output, that a full round of attacks being missing so that we do a little bit extra damage on subsequent rounds is as good as a full round of making attacks, since we get so many reactions. So I'm taking this as a prerequisite for other stuff. Of course, if you used it, subsequent attacks would actually be really good. So it's your choice. Our trait is going to be Signature Attack, and it depends on which one you use most. If you are doing banging heads more often, then that should be your signature attack. If it is grappling technique, well then grappling technique should be your signature attack. Please note that banging heads we already get an edge on because of additional limb. And so I'm probably going to assume that we have the edge on grappling technique so that we have an edge on either of our primary attacks. But edges do stack. And so if you were to add a signature attack to banging heads, you would have a double edge on it, which is pretty awesome. Let's go ahead and do our damage for rank 4. So now we are spending 20 points of focus for anger, which gives us 30 points of damage on all melee-based attacks. So with banging heads, we would do 138 points of damage, split between 2 enemies. And if we attack 1 enemy with a grappling technique and 3 crushing grips, then we would do on average 276 points of damage to that enemy. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 5. We're going to bring melee, resilience, and vigilance to 8, and we're going to bring ego to a 13. So now we at least have a little bit of conversational skills. We're going to get defenses of 18 for melee, resilience, and vigilance, 10 for agility, and a 13 for ego, and an 8 for logic. And the 8 for logic is really a 4. All right, at rank 5, we're going to start with Brace for Impact. We get to use a reaction, if we really want to, in order to have an attack hit our focus rather than our health. Effectively is what it does, just in case your health somehow is actually getting low. Next, we're going to take Healing Factor. So every round, we get to heal our resilience value or ability score in health. I have seen this take people from the brink of death to up and fighting in the next combat regularly. It is truly amazing, and I wish I could take it on more builds. Next, we're going to take extended reach 2, so now our reach is multiplied by 10. So we have a 50-foot reach with each of our 4 limbs to be able to grab anybody and smack them together, which is just going to be awesome. And if you're able to convince your narrator that you can do banging heads with all 4 limbs, it's going to be monstrously fun. Next, we're going to take Counter-Strike Technique. Now, this is something that I don't anticipate using very often, but it really is a prerequisite for something else, so we'll grab it. Counter-Strike Technique says that when attack stance is active and a close attack does damage to us, we can use a reaction to deal half that damage back at the attacker. I don't think we'll ever use this, honestly. But we took that so we could take Untouchable Position. Now, Untouchable Position is a permanent power, no action required, and if we are attacked, all other close attacks against us have trouble until the start of our next turn. So what's nice is we want to get hit, and then that should, depending on the attack and the type of attack it is, trigger Untouchable Position, so that the first attack hits us, we can initiate anger, and other ones coming in have trouble that might be useful from time to time. All right, our trait is Signature Attack again, and whichever one you took last time, Banging Heads or Grappling Technique, now you just take the other one. So by now we have an edge on Grappling Technique and a double edge on Banging Heads, which is pretty great. Let's go ahead and do damage for rank 5. If we did a Banging Heads attack, we would do 148 points of damage on the board. And if we did an attack against one enemy with 3 reactions, we would do 296 points of damage to that enemy. All right, let's go ahead and build rank 6. We're gonna bring melee, resilience, and vigilance to a 9, and ego to a 5. This will give us defenses of a 19 for melee, resilience, and vigilance, 10 for agility, a 15 for ego, and an 8 for logic. But when anger gets going, that's gonna drop to a 2. First power we're gonna take is 34 for a 4 damage reduction, which is always nice. Next, we're going to take Regain Focus. All of the stuff with attack stance and untouchable position, all of that is there because you might use it, but really it's a prerequisite for Regain Focus. Regain Focus allows us to regain our vigilance ability score in focus every round. And since we also have Do This All Day, allowing us to spend focus to regain health, we now have effectively unlimited focus and unlimited health on this character. It takes us to rank 6 to get it, but you are going to be able to spend focus for anger whenever you want, you're going to be able to reduce incoming damage whenever you want, and you're going to heal everything back up no matter what. It's a pretty amazing combo. We're also going to finally take Wisdom now. I didn't reflect it in the defense scores earlier, but we're going to take Wisdom, so now we get to use our ego defense for logic-based attacks, which that's going to be super useful considering our actual logic defense is going to be a 2. Next, we're going to take Slip Free. This is a reaction power that's in the Plasticity power set that just says that if we are grabbed or pinned, we use a reaction and we are no longer grabbed or pinned. No roll associated. We just slip free. End of sentence. That's pretty awesome. Lastly, at rank 6, we're going to take Flexible Fingers. Now, you could take something else. This is really something that might come up maybe once or twice, but it allows you to reshape your fingers and your hands into any kind of tool, including keys to be able to open doors. This is really useful at lower ranks. It might come up at higher ranks. So if you have something that you think would be more fun, go ahead and grab that instead, but I really like this power. Our trait is going to be Berserker. I don't think I've ever taken this on a character build before, but it just seems too good on this character to pass up, and I wish I could have taken it earlier. So what this tells us is that when we take physical damage, we make an ego check and the target number is the damage done. If we fail, we go Berserk. Being Berserk gives us an edge on all close attacks and adds a +2 to our melee, resilience, and ego defenses. We have a -2 to our agility defense, which already was only a 10, and at this rank, everybody's going to hit a 10, so that's really not a big consequence. This does end up costing us 5 points of focus per round of combat, so we have to be careful if we decide to take this, but if you just want an extra edge on all of those melee checks, this is kind of fun. Hey, Future Joe coming in from the editing bay. I apparently forgot to record the damage for rank 6, so let's do that real fast. If you did Banging Heads as a multi-target damage dealer, you would do 188 points of damage spread across 2 enemies. And if you went single target damage, as we've described, you would do 376 points of damage in a single round of combat when you include 3 reaction attacks. So how does this character stack up in damage? And to answer that, realistically, we need to look at it for both multi-target builds and single-target builds. Let's start with multi-target builds. In multi-target builds, this character does, on average, all ranks averaged together, 115.3 points of damage. That puts it second from the bottom. However, I want to make one point. This character is doing that amount of damage to 2 enemies, not 3. When I think about the sniper, when I think about the slugger, when I think about the bodybuilder, when I think about the artist, these characters and their abilities typically targeted 3 enemies, not 2. And so this character can reliably do more damage to these 2 enemies than was happening to each of the 3 enemies in the other builds. So there's actually a little bit of upwards kind of adjustment that you might have to make in your mind. And remember, being able to simply reach the enemy with a single or a double or at the end a triple edge means you're going to pull off banging heads way more often. Of course, the downside is that when you have a fantastic success with banging heads, you don't get double damage, and that's kind of a letdown. Single target, however, is where this power and where this combatant really shines. We average 192.5 points of damage across all of the ranks averaged together. So 192.5 points of damage on average makes it second from the top, just below the cheater face Over Again, which was a person who stopped time to make stupid numbers of attacks, right? And averaged almost 420 points of damage. So in like more fair combatant rules, this is an amazing damage dealer. Being able to add that much damage to every attack is just really good. No surprises. And of course, it's super reliable because melee attacks are done within your reach. Our reach by the end of this character's career is 50 feet with 4 arms. So you could actually pull off this level of damage pretty regularly. Now, we might think that a downside of this build is if you use Berserker, you're going to be losing 5 points of focus. But don't forget, we're regaining focus every round of combat due to the regain focus power. So Berserker kind of gets canceled out on its negative attributes, which is pretty great. And considering that we have this extended reach, we're going to be able to utilize our rage ability and our crushing grip and our ability to grab and grapple. We're going to do that pretty reliably. So this is an incredibly viable combatant, albeit he doesn't really do anything else. And that's not to mention the issues you might have with how your narrator interprets a character with a logic score of a 6 or a 4, which you will regularly have on this character. That combined with the traits of the Berserker, which say that you lose some control of your character, there is a high risk, high reward aspect of playing a character that has such a low logic score. But on the other hand, it's a TTRPG and no risk, no reward, I suppose. I think it's an incredibly fun character to build and to play, and you will do ridiculous amounts of damage. Though the early ranks, you're not getting that single target bump. Don't forget, at early ranks, we don't have a great single target attack ability. We're relying on banging heads until rank 3. So being a single target damage dealer does not kick in until mid-game. Just a thing to think about. Anyway, that's the build for the week. I hope you liked it. YouTube's made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.